I want to talk to you about resiliency. I want to talk to you about the feeling you talk about in your book of not knowing where you're going to go next and where it comes from within you to make a big, bold leap forward. Because I've had to put it out all out on the table for you. I'm a recovering drug addict. I was 550 pounds at one point in my life. Like I've overcome a lot, but it's sometimes hard for me to communicate about the thing that got me to take the step forward. You know what I mean? So I want to hear from you what that was with you back when that was happening with mental illness or just mental fog or whatever you were going through at the time.
Well, the challenges through life, they come and go. Everybody's got different challenges. First of all, I was very lucky to grow up the way I did. My mother divorced my father when I was 2 or 3 years old, which is how an Italian gets a Dutch name. My stepfather adopted me. So that's supposed to be one of the things that's like traumatic in your early life that kind of sets you on a path of insecurity and problems. But we moved in with my grandparents, and I was the first child of first grandchild in an Italian family. I was brought up like, Jesus Christ, I was brought up like with an enormous amount of love from the uncles and aunts and grandparents, and I think that amount of love early on, stays with you. That kind of environment. I think so. First of all, that gave me a weird sense of security that would come in handy later in life. I think, as I tried to analyze it when I wrote my book, you're forced to kind of analyze your life at that point because I had never looked back, really until then. So there was that. And the next huge traumatic sort of event was leaving the E Street Band literally the night before payday, and realizing that I'd blown my life at that point. And I was already kind of committed to this strange career of artist slash journalist at that point, right in the middle of what you were talking about before, right in the middle of the South African campaign. So I was on my way to South Africa when it occurred to me that, you know, I really had blown the 15 years of work playing in bands since I was 15 and finally about to, make some money doing it. And I left. And what I hope what would come through in the book, and I think it comes through in the documentary that Bill Tech just did for HBO and Max. I think what comes through is there I was thinking that my life was kind of over, and I was committed to the political research that I was about to do. And it helped me doing that research because I was completely fearless at the time, feeling like I had already committed suicide, which made me stronger and made me fearless at a time when it was quite came in handy. But I was hoping that what would come through in the book is at the point where I thought my life was over, almost everything I've accomplished happened after that.
Right.
Everything I've accomplished happened after I thought my life was over. And I thought, that could be a useful thing for people to understand that when you hit that wall, that bottom, when you bottom out, if you can keep yourself, together in some kind of way and move forward somehow, whether it's cleaning up a drug addiction or a drinking a problem or a weight problem or whatever it might be. If you can just find a way to move forward, you're going to find out that maybe destiny isn't finished with you yet. And
Right.
there's things that, maybe there's more work to be done here. So you might as well hang around and then see what it is, rather than checking out, which is the easy way out. And I contemplated suicide, quite a bit. And maybe it crossed your mind also. In the end, I thought, I don't want to let them win. I don't want to let them win. There's a forces are at work here on this planet, and it's definitely some good and some evil. And there's a lot of people struggling. And if you consider yourself one of the good guys, you're kind of needed in this war that we have to struggle with every single day. And I thought it's kind of the coward's way out if I check out, if I commit suicide and split, I'm kind of like running away from the fight. And I felt like, again, try and be useful here, even if I'm cannon fodder or, whether if I'm on the front lines, I want to stick around and contribute what I can contribute, whatever it
Yeah.
might be. And at that point, I did not know what it would be. So that's the tough part. You're not sure what you can contribute, but stick around, is what I suggest, because it'll eventually become clear to you, and you'll be glad you stuck around.
Yeah, I relate so much to that fearlessness you talk. And my experience is not the same. It's my experience. But I remember getting a diagnosis from a doctor that I was going to die. I was 536 pounds. I was a junkie and I had congestive heart failure. And the doctor said, look, I can give you a water pill to try to reduce some of the water out of your system, but you're going to die. Like there's no coming back from this. And it was at that moment that I was like, well, if I'm going to die, I'd like to give my parents at least a clean corpse that's not a drug addict. And that's when I checked into rehab. And so I completely understand that fearlessness. It was like, well, I've got no other option here. I'm going to do something. And there were plenty of nights that I went to bed prior to that going like, I'll probably die tonight and it won't matter. Like I'll still do the drugs. It's not a big deal. I wasn't real worried about it. But then the doctor said, you're definitely going to die. And that was the moment that I found fearlessness in a way. And I talked to an awful lot of people who say, I'm desperate for change. And I don't know how to communicate, like, what's your rock bottom? What's going to be the instigating thing? But when you talk in your book about that fearlessness and in the documentary, when you're going to places in car trunks because they're dangerous, you got guys waving machetes in your face and you don't care because you're going on this mission and you're coming at it from the point of view that you've set your life on fire. That's a real powerful place to be.
Yeah, that's what I mean. And it might be a little bit more dramatic in both of our cases, but I think everybody goes through this a little bit, at
Yeah.
some point in their lives. It may not be quite as dramatic as our cases, but everybody's maybe first dream doesn't quite work out, or, that job, you thought you wanted doesn't happen. And it's easy to get depressed about that. And you just got to say, hey, and I'm not a metaphysical, I'm not a religious person, but I say to myself, that's not what destiny has in mind. So let's stick around and see what destiny does have in mind. You know what I mean? Because I don't pretend to know everything. I don't pretend to know what forces are at work, here in the world. So, let's see. I guess I wasn't meant to do that. I wasn't meant to have that job. I wasn't meant to do that for whatever reason. So let's see what I was meant to do, and you got to keep preparing yourself. Obviously, I'm not saying be passive about this. You want to try and make yourself as realize your potential, whatever that may be, in terms of your physical body and your mental health. I mean, you want to keep improving yourself in whatever way you can control. But what I tell people is, do not spend one single minute on that which you do not control. That is one easy way to waste one's time. Do what you can do what you can control, and keep trying stuff until you see what works. But if something really doesn't work out that you had your heart set on, you got to look at it like, hey, it wasn't meant to be, and that's okay. I'm going to move on here, and we'll see what comes up next. I mean, 90% of my life, as I'm working and banging my head against the door over here, 90% of my life comes through the back door.
Yeah.
Come to the side door that I'm not even looking at, and you say, "Oh, that's what my life's going to be." I thought it was going to be this over here, but it's that over there. Okay, I'm like, okay, I'll go with it. I'll go with whatever whatever path is in front of me. So it's one of them things that you just gotta, you kind of be a little bit philosophical about, and try to not be too emotional about it, because and put all of your chips on one number.
Is there an openness that you practice? Because I know for myself in certain situations, when I'm so kind of dialed into something that's typically like result oriented, if I have my eyes on some result that I want to see happen and I think I'm working towards it, I'm ignoring all of the other stuff. How you talk about most of your life comes in the back door, that's so beautiful. And I think it requires an openness. And I want to know, like, is this something you actively think about? Like, be willing for, God or any kind of whatever you want to call it to step in through the back and present other opportunities?
Yeah, I don't want to suggest that you shouldn't be focused. It's kind of I know it sounds like a paradox, a contradiction, but I mean, you do want to be focused on whatever you're doing, and whatever you start, you should try and finish.